You'd be a little tight.
Yeah. You're right.
Yeah. Yes, yours right here. And I'll put it up here. Yeah, I'm done. All right, is everybody ready to go?
Can you drop that phone, please? Thank you.
All right, I'm Darren Pytel, the Davis Police Chief, and thank you for being here this afternoon. So we are here to deliver the news to the entire community that everybody's been waiting to hear. We've made an arrest. But before we get into the details, I first want to express my deepest, sincerest condolences to the families of David and Kareem. The lives of David and Kareem were brutally taken this last week, and I also wish a speedy recovery to Kim, who was severely wounded in the knife attack just a few days ago. She's recovering in the hospital, and we're hoping for a speedy recovery and that she'll soon be released. These crimes were horrific. They're hard to imagine. They struck fear in the community, and we know that. We've also experienced loss. David and Kareem were taken way too soon. We will never truly understand the sadness or sense of loss for their families, and we will miss them. We hope that the announcement today provides some level of relief. I want to thank the entire regional law enforcement system and national. We have allied agencies here, and on our website you'll see a list of all the agencies that helped us out in the last week, and there are many. Everybody wanted to chip in and provide a level of support to the city of Davis. I also want to thank our community. They've shown steadfast support for us and demonstrated support through their amazing acts of kindness over the last few days. And afterwards, I can get into some of the things that the community has done for us. I want to thank the members of the Davis Police Department. I couldn't be more proud of all of the work that they've done in this past week. It's been a busy week, and most of them have received very little sleep. They've been working nonstop during this entire investigation. You wouldn't know it by the quality of the work being done. They left no stone unturned. Now, for a short recap of why we're here. The first homicide occurred on April 27, 2023 at 11:20 a.m., and that's when it's reported. We responded to a welfare check over in Central Park, and the responding units found a person deceased, David Breaux. He had been stabbed many times, and it was apparent that it was a particularly brazen and brutal attack. We launched an investigation, collected a lot of physical evidence, and immediately started looking for who may be responsible. The problem with this one is there was no eyewitnesses, and so we had to wait for evidence to come back through the investigation. And then just 2 nights later, we had another attack. And this one, Kareem was in the park, Sycamore Park, located in central West Davis, and he was violently attacked and stabbed many times. A witness had seen the last part of the attack, had a short interaction with the suspect, who took off going westbound out of the park. We immediately started a search, but we weren't able to locate the suspect that night. 2 nights later, we had another attack. Kimberly was in a tent located at 2nd and L Street, and she had just gone to bed. She was alone, and we had a person slash the side of the tent, reach in and stab her several times. She called 911 and said that she had been stabbed. The responding officers arrived shortly thereafter. They conducted a search, but again were unable to locate the suspect. She was transported to the UCD Med Center. She underwent surgery for the stab wounds, and she is recovering, which is good news. The initial crimes were both investigated as homicides, and of course we launched an attempt homicide investigation for the third stabbing. And everybody's asked, are the three crimes related? And well, we investigated, it was certainly more probable than not that they were. We didn't know whether we had several attackers out there or one, so we had to keep all options on the table. So this brings us to the arrest, and this is how it went down. Yesterday afternoon, we had about 15 callers over near Central West Davis, near Sycamore Park, and they reported seeing a person who matched the description that we had provided after the third attack. All of them reported kind of the same thing. A person was at the park, was wearing the same clothing that we had put out in the description, and that he was wandering around. We were a little behind on some of the calls, like had seen him a couple minutes ago or 10 minutes ago, but eventually one of the callers said, I'm following him right now, and was able to lead us to the person. He was stopped by several patrol officers, and they had a short conversation. It appeared that he had some physical evidence on him that might be part of the investigation, and he was wearing really the same clothing that was described by the witnesses after the third attack. This looked like a match. So they spoke to him briefly, and at this point, it was becoming a little bit of a neighborhood spectacle. So they asked if he would be willing to come downtown here so that they could speak with them, and he agreed. The detectives met with him, and they spent many hours interviewing him. And based on the interview, physical evidence that we were able to collect from him and the clothing and other physical evidence at that point that was starting to come in, we decided to first arrest him for possessing a large knife that was on his person when he was picked up. He was wearing a backpack, and in the backpack was a large knife that was consistent with one that we were looking for based on evidence from the first homicide. So having this information, the detectives worked pretty diligently throughout the night, and just about an hour ago placed him under arrest on 2 counts of homicide for David Breaux and Kareem Najim, and for 1 count of attempt murder for Kimberly. He is now at the Yolo County Jail, and the district attorney will be reviewing our reports in the coming days to determine any final charging decisions. I can't thank the City of Davis and our community for their support. It's pretty remarkable. 15 people took a description that we had put out, and actually all of you in the media had helped us put out, and they saw a person who matched the description, and they called. And that led directly to the arrest in this case. This was a partnership between all the law enforcement professionals, some that you see up here, and our community members who stepped up. That's pretty remarkable and pretty amazing. These horrific crimes have resulted in immeasurable loss to the victims' families and friends and to our community. But as we move forward together, it also demonstrates Davis has compassion, a deep sense of community when faced with tragedy. We are a resilient community. Having been here my entire life, I can tell you we've been through tragedies before, and we'll get through this one. I have no doubt that normal life will resume today. There's still much work to be done, and we'll get it done. We're committed to a successful prosecution now. And now, Mayor Arnold is going to speak, and after he speaks, I'll come back up and answer any questions.
Thank you, Chief. Thank you for all of your work and your dedication over the course of this investigation. It's because of the fine police work that we are here today to announce that the individual believed to be responsible for these horrific, brutal attacks is no longer free to terrorize our community. This is a remarkable achievement for the Davis Police Department to bring these cases to this point so quickly. The arrest today is the culmination of excellent investigative work by the Davis Police, as well as our regional and national law enforcement partners. I commend and thank them, these professionals who worked around the clock to ensure that this criminal is taken out of our neighborhoods and is now in custody. I also commend the people of Davis who worked together to keep each other safe and supported, and who shared tips and critical information to help crack this case. A murderer is off the streets, and our families will sleep easier tonight. The work is not over by any means, and there remains critical investigative police efforts to ensure that this perpetrator is brought to justice. And while this arrest, no doubt, brings an element of closure to our community and to the families of the victims, let us not forget that their lives have been irreparably impacted. We will never forget David and Kareem. And we will continue to hope and pray that Kim makes a full and speedy recovery. We must remain committed as a community to supporting them with love and compassion. I know we have it in us. Now the work begins in earnest to heal as a community, to take back our shared spaces, and to move forward as one. Thank you.
It occurs to me, you probably all want to know the name of the person arrested. That would be 21-year-old Carlos Dominguez of Davis.
Anything else that you can share with us?
I'm sorry?
Anything else that you can share with us about the suspect?
He was a student at UCD up until last week. He's been here for a couple of years, and we're still gathering other background information on him at this point.
Any idea of a motive?
Hold on.
Any idea of a motive at this point?
That's still under investigation.
Did he confess?
We can't release that information. That'll have to come out in court later.
Could you spell that last name?
Yes, I can. Dominguez.
Was he harmless?
Hold on. Go ahead.
Can you confirm whether or not the activity on Hawthorne and 8th is related?
Yes, we're currently serving a search warrant at his residence on Hawthorne and Davis. That search is underway, and we're gathering evidence at this point.
Was there any evidence that when he was detained yesterday, he was out looking to kill?
We don't have any evidence of that. What I can say is that he was in the park where the second homicide occurred. He had a backpack on. He was wearing the same clothing from the third attack, and he had a large knife in his possession.
And can you clarify if these three stabbings are connected?
At this point, we believe that all three are connected, and we have evidence and information that they are, and that we have one person responsible.
Was he compliant during the
Hold on one sec. One at a time, please.
Was he compliant during the whole process, or did he put up a fight, or?
He was compliant during the entire process.
Can you have an indication that he was looking to be found? I mean, he was exactly the way he was described, wearing the things you would expect him to be wearing, in the location you would expect him to be in daylight, as opposed to a crime that occurred at night. Did he want you to find him?
It does not appear so, but as you described, the behavior was quite unusual in a circumstance like this. He was aware that he was being looked for.
And one more, you said up until last week, was he expelled from the school? Did he leave the school? Why was he expelled up until last week?
So we're still investigating that, but at some point the campus will provide more information.
Can you describe the knife, the large knife? Was this a hunting knife? Was this a kitchen knife? And does he have a criminal record?
This would be described more as a hunting-style knife, and I don't yet know whether he has a criminal record.
Did he know the victims? Was this random? Were they random?
We have no information that he knew any of the victims, although that is still under investigation. We still have a lot of evidence to go through from the three victims and information from him. So we haven't even looked at that yet.
Does he live with anybody in that house? Who else lives there?
He does have some roommates that live there.
What DNA evidence has come back, if any, and can you talk about how that might have played a role in identifying him?
We collected a lot of biological and physical evidence from the three scenes. We're still waiting for, we've received returns on some of the evidence, and now we're going through the process of doing comparisons. So that is ongoing.
Where is Carlos from before UC Davis?
I've heard Oakland, but I have not confirmed that.
Was he under the influence?
I'm sorry.
Was he under the influence of anything?
It does not appear to be.
And just to clarify, has he denied his involvement in any of the crimes?
I can't discuss the contents of the interview.
How did you link the three stabbings?
Basically, through our investigative process, examination of physical evidence, and the information we knew about the three crimes.
You said before that he understood that he was being looked for. Is that correct?
It appears he did.
Chief, can you clarify, up until this point you mentioned that there was more than a dozen members of the community who spotted him, who pointed him out. It seemed to be very obvious based on the description of what he was wearing. Up until that point, did you have any indication of who you were looking for? If he had not been in the park at that time and been seen by 15 people, do you think you would have been any closer to finding him?
We were getting pretty close based on other physical evidence, but the tip certainly expedited his finding him and an arrest. There's no doubt about that.
Based on what you know about him now, would you classify him as a serial killer?
At this point, based on the information that we have and the definition of a serial killer, that would apply.
Have you talked to any of his roommates? Have they described them in some sort?
We have spoken to the roommates, and they have provided us information.
Are they college students?
I actually don't know for sure. We can probably get that information later.
When will a mugshot be released?
I don't believe that a mugshot will be released.
Will there be a change in police presence following this event for the time being, or is it going to decrease again after the arrest?
We still have, the stepped-up patrols for right now, but that'll diminish.
Just to clarify on the third stabbing, you said, I think, that he reached into the tent. Did he reach into the tent, or I think we also had heard that it happened through the tent? Can you clarify, please?
Yeah, so the initial information that we had was that he had slashed the tent, reached in and stabbed, and then another person said that the stabbing was through the tent, but our victim, who provided the original statement, that appears to be more accurate.
Did he have any other weapons on him?
No.
Is there any concern of copycat attacks?
Well, I certainly hope not. Yes.
Were you able to confirm his ID with the victim in the hospital?
We haven't done that yet. Yes.
Was there any kind of mental illness or any indications that he
We're still evaluating that, but there's no obvious.
So do you classify these as serial killings?
I'm sorry.
Do you classify these stabbings, the two that were fatal, as serial killings?
Well, if you use the very strict definition, then yes.
So what's going to happen now? You were saying that there's still going to be some patrolling tonight. When is that going to diminish, and what have you learned from this experience that you will apply for next occasions? I know this is very rare in Vegas, but, it happened. So
Yeah, so our staffing levels in Davis, they get us through most of the time. It really takes an event like this to have a serious shortage where you're calling in such significant resources. So for the most part, we're able to manage our staffing levels and provide regular patrols.
So for the people out and about in the community, the people who cut back their business hours, the people who change their lives even temporarily, are they free to go about business as usual now?
Yes, I believe that we have the right person in custody, and I think that Davis can resume life as normal now. For all of you who haven't been to Davis and haven't been here for a long time, this is a beautiful, engaged community. People are out and about all the time, and we have sporting events, we have university events, we have community events, family events, farmers market. School district has stuff going on all the time. There's always something happening. Our downtown is unique and vibrant and a busy place. And I would expect that things will get back to normal here in short order. It was important for us to solve this crime or these crimes, to make this announcement. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm going to go out and enjoy everything that Davis has to offer.
So you live in an apartment or a house on Hawthorne?
I don't believe it's an apartment. Do you know?
Yeah, it's a house.
It's a house.
Do you have an address?
I don't. We can. Actually, some of your colleagues are out there now.
have you been called out to that house in the last few months ever on anything?
I don't know. Does anybody know? No? No.
No.
Do you believe that large knife is the murder weapon?
We still have to evaluate that. So that's part of the evidence analysis that still has to occur.
What do you have observation if UC Davis is going to resume classes as normal by any chance?
It is our current intention to resume evening classes as normal, probably Monday.
Okay, perfect, thank you.
What DNA evidence?
Chancellor May, by the way, from UC Davis.
Thank you.
What DNA evidence have you gotten back so far?
We've gotten back evidence from the first and the second homicides.
You said
When
he
will
was
he
a
be
former
arraigned?
student? You say he's a former student. Did something happen last week where
The,
could have causes?
Yeah, I know that UC Davis is going to address questions regarding his status, and I'm not exactly sure when, but I hear it's coming up.
When and where will he be arraigned?
He would be arraigned at the Yolo County Courthouse in Woodland. It's my understanding it would occur as early as Monday.
Did roommates realize that he matched the suspect description that had been put out?
We're still going through the information they provided.
There was an emergency shelter that was open for unhoused people. There was concern in that community. Do you believe that he was targeting them?
We don't actually have any information at this point that he was targeting the homeless community.
Have his roommates been questioned?
We have spoken to the roommates, yes.
Chief, any indication that he was planning to strike again? I don't know.
We don't. What I can say is, again, he was out wandering a neighborhood where the second homicide had occurred. He had a large knife in a backpack wearing the same clothes from the third stabbing. That's highly unusual and unique. I think everybody will have to draw their own conclusions on that.
When speaking to the
Do you believe that the hunting knife was used in each of the attacks?
I don't have any information regarding that. Of course, that's part of the examination that'll be done.
Chief, in your search of his belongings, did you find the second victim's bike?
Yes. I believe so. Wait, hold on. Find the second. The night of. Yes.
Do you have any idea what he's been doing the last several days? Has he just been walking among the community,
idea?
I think they're still going through and evaluating that.
Did you confirm the identity of the witness of the second homicide? And you said the third one hasn't yet, but the second witness?
I don't know if that's been done yet.
You said the bike was still in his possession? The initial reports were the bike.
Hold on one sec. We can get the bike issue clarified. Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so during the second attack, when officers responded to the scene, we began a search of the area, and they located the bike just outside the park, abandoned, obviously.
Could you identify yourself, please? Your name?
Sorry about that. Deputy Chief Todd Henry, Henry.
Did he have an alibi for where he was at the time of the stabbings, or did he admit to being in the general area? He may not have been the crime. Can you talk about what you may have talked about with detectives?
No, I'm sorry. I'm not going to release any information regarding the interviews.
Do police plan to talk to the other witnesses about the suspect's description in the future or anytime soon?
Of course.
There was a previous announcement of biological evidence that had been collected at the three scenes. Could you go into detail on what that was at each site?
Just in a general sense, we collected blood evidence and fibers and other types of trace evidence.
Was he hurt at all? Did any of the victims fight back?
We do know that that victims fought back based on physical evidence that we have. And he does have some injuries on his hands and wrists.
What's his demeanor like?
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
His demeanor?
His demeanor?
Yeah.
Reserved. He spoke for a long time.
Any remorse expressed?
No.
Chief, any remorse expressed?
I can't talk about that at this point.
Can we just ask the Chancellor, when should we expect to hear from you about this student?
We have a release prepared that will follow this press conference.
So you said you'd never been to that house on Hawthorne. Have you had any interaction with the suspect prior to detention yesterday?
I don't believe so.
Do you know if he has any criminal history at all?
From what I gathered prior to coming in here, I don't believe so.
Was he employed anywhere other than going to school?
I don't have any information yet.
Had he been home?
I'm sorry?
Had he been home between the attacks? Had his roommate seen him since last Thursday?
Yes.
Chancellor, can you provide any information on him as a student, what he studied, what happened?
I'm not at liberty to do that at this time, but I will say we'll fully cooperate with the investigation and prosecution as it goes forward.
When can we expect to hear more information about the suspect or the details of major stuff like this?
At this point, you probably won't hear too much more from the Davis Police Department. We'll be turning over the investigation to the Yolo County District Attorney's Office, and at this point, they're going to go through the process of prosecution. So most of the facts coming out in the future will probably be in court.
Did he have any drugs on him at the time when he was detained?
No.
Do you have a total of how many tips from the public you got in this case?
I don't have the total now. It was what the last time I asked for it, which was I think 2 days ago. It was well over 300, and I believe we're into the 400 or 500 range at this point, based on the number that we just had so many tips coming in, and they were coming in different channels as well. People calling 911 or business line is the tip line, and a lot of emails as well.
Chief, prior to him being spotted in the park yesterday by those 15 or so people who called, did any of the previous tips point to this person?
I'm still going through and having them evaluate whether anybody else had said anything on him.
Is there any indication that he knew Kareem because they were both UC Davis students, or?
We're still evaluating that.
Do you have his date of birth?
I don't, but we will definitely get it before you all leave.
You described him as being from Davis, but that's just because he was a UC Davis student.
I'm sorry?
Didn't go to Davis High School or grow up in Davis?
I don't have any information that he did. I think he's from at least he came from the Bay Area. There's some indication of that.
Will there be any more information forthcoming about the roommates? These are my neighbors, and it's disconcerting that if he's been home, that there was not any awareness raised to the police department about his presence.
So we'll go through and evaluate, and if there's information that needs to be shared with the neighborhood, we'll of course do that. Absolutely.
Has his family been contacted, the suspect?
I don't know.
Did the roommates have any indication that any of this is happening?
That is still under investigation. All right. I think we got through the questions. I would like to make a couple, well, as long as you're all here, I would like to make a couple of introductions and some of the team who really helped pull this investigation together. So starting with the Davis Police Department, Deputy Chief Todd Henry, who is actually brand new to the Davis Police Department. He just started a couple of weeks ago. And Deputy Chief Henry was in charge of operations during the last week, basically coordinating the patrol response and the investigative response. He has just put in a ton of work. Speaking of the investigation and response, Lieutenant Munoz is in the back of the room. He is our crack star lead investigator for the department, and he had put together a crack team. But since I see two other investigators who were stars yesterday, I gotta tell you about them. Detective Matthew Muscardini, who's been working diligently on this, and Detective Ramos, who's back there as well. These two have been working tirelessly for the past week and putting this case together. They're amazing. And then next to them is Officer Giannoni, and she has coordinated all of those tips that have been coming in. She's done a remarkable job, and she was doing it on her birthday as well. And then Antonia Diaz, and she was in charge of all of the evidence collection and everything that was going on throughout this. So did an amazing job. I don't see Gene out there, but we have Gene Lyon, who's the Deputy Director of Police Services. Gene's the one who's been helping us prepare a lot of the written releases and putting information out on social media to keep everybody timely informed. And of course, that paid off big in this particular case. And Lieutenant Dan Beckwith, who most of you are familiar with because he is the face of Davis PD with all of you, did a remarkable job. And we have our City Council up here, and I'm happy to have you come up if you want to introduce yourself. We have our local assembly member as well, our city manager, Mike Webb. We have the FBI, and as we've been saying all along, we have our federal partners, and they've done just an amazing job, as they always do. We got professional support from Sacramento Sheriff's Department. They sent over a crack team, and they've been helping all along the way. It takes a large amount of people to do an investigation that is so complex like this, so we can't thank them enough for everything that they've provided. And of course, the Yolo County Sheriff's Department, they have been providing investigative support, and they have been helping out with all of the extra patrols in town. I'm sure you've seen them around quite a bit in the past week. The Highway Patrol was out and about during these incidents and helped with the perimeters on each of the events. And of course, we have my partner in Davis, Joe Farrow, who's the UC Davis Police Chief. And Joe and I have been constantly in communication during the last week to coordinate UC Davis and our responses, which has been critical. Both keeping campus administration, what's going on, and of course Davis administration, keeping them in the loop with what's going on. Joe and I, we found ourselves at a command post all night after the third attack. He came in about the same time I did, and I think we worked probably 20 hours that day. So, just an absolute big help. Who else I think I got everybody here. All right. Do you guys want to be introduced? Vice Mayor Josh Chapman and Council Member Bapu Vatala. And you've already met the mayor. And we have Gloria Partida, who's our council member. I think I got them all. All right. If there's no further questions, Dan is available to answer any of the follow-up questions, provide the date of birth, and you can contact him. But like I said, at this point, our focus is getting our cases done, to the district attorney so that this case can move forward. And so there's still a lot of work to be done. We probably won't be releasing too much more information at this point. We got to focus on that. All right, thank you everybody for being here.
I think it's in money or possibly some of it right now. Okay. I think it's the little one. The one with the big font. Good job. That's very nice. Thank you, Gary.
I am. Hi. Really quick, I have time to